The United States presidential election 2016 was quite possibly the most political year in the last 70 years of American history. Never before has the world seen an election quite like this one. It is one of controversies, drama, memes, and internet arguments. It is an election that is one for the ages. Many people call it the Great Meme War, so much so that meme quality has never been as good since. The vast amount of things that happened in these 2 years is so great that I think I need to document it all, for historical reasons, to make sure that we all remember the strife, anticipation, and the laughs we experienced. And that is the video that you're watching right now. Bear in mind this is not a partisan video, I'm just explaining the facts as it went down. Thanks. 2012. Barack Obama is running for re-election. His opponent is former governor of Massachusetts, Mitt Romney. Romney knows that a simple mistake can ruin a campaign, so he tries to run the safest, most moderate, most careful campaign he can. And that made it boring. Obama won by a landslide, meaning he got a second term as president, but he can't run again. The 2016 election would mean that new candidates from both major parties would need to be selected. In the United States, the public do not elect the president directly. Rather, they go out and vote, and then the 538 members of the Electoral College look at the results and vote how they see fit. Usually this is in line with what the public choose, but in 23 states the electors don't have to pick what the public voted for. Some might say this is undemocratic and an archaic system from the 1700s that needs to change. As mentioned before, the Democratic Party needed to find a new candidate now that Obama was done. One of the main candidates was former First Lady and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who lost to Obama in 2008. She was ready to try again, but this time actually win. She wanted to continue the policies of Obama and something called inclusive capitalism, which is basically laying the foundations for better class mobility and allowing marginalized groups more participation in society. Overall, pretty standard neoliberal policies. She was the favourite among older liberals, most women, and inner-city hipsters. She was also the favourite among the inner Democratic Party, who saw her as a solid choice. Her neoliberal positions made her perfect for the two-party system, because she could attract more moderate or libertarian conservatives. Meanwhile, Bernie Sanders, an independent senator from Vermont, ran on a platform of democratic socialism. He wanted to turn the United States into a more European-style country, with universal healthcare, free tuition, and higher taxes on the rich. This resonated with the younger people in American society, especially disillusioned millennials who entered the workforce at around the 2008 financial crash. Although he had tremendous support, it was mostly from people who already supported these policies. While Bernie would be centre-left in Europe, he was pretty far left in the United States, therefore guaranteeing few cross-party voters. Nevertheless, he started a grassroots campaign for democratic socialism that continues to this day. A whopping 17 people were launching major bids for the Republican nomination. Among them were prominent Republicans Ben Carson, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Jeb Bush, John Kasich, and Mike Huckabee. The favourites were Ted Cruz and John Kasich, as they were both skilled politicians with experience. Cruz, as a hardline conservative, wanted a simple flat tax rate, less government, and conservative social policies implemented. Kasich was more of a moderate who wanted to eliminate income tax, but also wanted to tackle climate change. They were milquetoast Republicans, and that meant they were perfect candidates for a two-party system. They were poised to win, until suddenly...
I am officially running
for President of the United States.
And we are going to make our country great again.
That's right, Donald Trump, the real estate mogul and professional birth certificate hunter, made a powerful speech that proclaimed three important things. America is not great. He will make America great, and building a wall will solve this. In his speeches, Trump blamed Mexican immigration and radical Islam for all of America's problems, as well as Barack Obama's policies in the economy. This anti-immigration, anti-Islamic rhetoric was seen as racist by some. From this moment to the present day, the American media began a tirade against the racist Donald Trump. The media slandered Trump day in and day out. You couldn't visit the CNN homepage without seeing an image of Trump. And you probably still can't now. Anyway, we have our candidates, we have our issues, we have a year to go. Now it is over to the mainstream media to report it.
Thank you for joining us live on the air.
My pleasure.
on the screen is an address where you can mail your tithe offering or gift of love.
Okay, got the idea? All right, now let's pass it then. They're living through television.
Between his candidacy announcement and his election, CNN mentioned the word Trump in their articles approximately 36,500 times. In that 513-day period between June 2015 and November 2016, they mentioned Trump 71 times per day. That's almost 3 times an hour. People love to be outraged, and CNN unknowingly played into Trump's hands by reporting on his outrageous activities. The word was spread about Trump and his policies without Trump even needing to lift a single finger. Every man and woman over the age of 12 can remember Donald Trump's campaign slogan. One of Hillary's campaign slogans was, "Love Trump's hate." Who the hell puts their opponent's name in their campaign slogan?
Are you just a fucking idiot?
Another failure of the Clintons' campaign was calling half of Trump's supporters deplorables. Not only did this alienate people who could potentially have come to your side, it also spawned a terrible trend that persists to this day. Lastly, Clinton sort of assumed that because she was a woman, and thus be the first woman president, that this would be a good enough reason to vote for her. This is not an accurate prediction that was reinforced by Marine Le Pen's tremendous failure in the French presidential election of the next year. Sanders was popular and relatively controversial free, and supposedly had more support than any other candidate out of the whole bunch. He was populist, democratic socialist, and progressive. He had many good slogans such as "Feel the Burn" and "Political Revolution" and "Bernie and Bust." His only issue was that for the past 100 years, the US government had spent literal trillions of dollars informing the public that the word socialism was connotative of anti-freedom, even if democratic socialism had nothing to do with the likes of the USSR or China. Cruz's campaign was simply just boring because he looks like a melting snowman, and Kasich's campaign was ruined by him eating a sandwich kind of weird. The failures of his fellow Republicans led Trump to essentially insult himself to the nomination. When the primaries rolled around, Trump won by a landslide. The vote had been split by Kasich and Cruz, leading to a Trump victory. Trump was now the Republican nominee for president. Meanwhile, shady things went on in the Democratic Party. Polling stations where people went to vote were moved to places that seemingly had less support for Bernie Sanders. Here's the theory. The Democratic Party potentially rigged the primaries to a more centrist and wider appeal candidate so that moderate voters would not be alienated by democratic socialism. Thus, Bernie was knocked out of the race and Hillary became the Democratic nominee. Such is life in the two-party system. Go to any 4chan You Laugh You Lose compilation from 2016 and I guarantee there will be a video related to the presidential election. I guarantee it. One of the biggest memes was that Ted Cruz was supposedly the Zodiac Killer. I mean, he looks like the Zodiac Killer's police sketch. And although the murders took place in the 1960s, Cruz was born in 1970. But what's to stop him from lying about his age? And also, Ted Cruz 2016 can be rearranged to spell Too True Zodiac. Spooky. Well, Ted Cruz is clearly not the Zodiac Killer, or is he? No, he isn't. But originally he would reject the meme and block those on Twitter who tweeted it to him. But he has since embraced his identity as the true Zodiac Killer. Jeb Bush was an incompetent candidate and is considered the failure of his family despite being the damn governor of Florida. After finishing a speech so lame, he had to ask the audience to clap.
Please clap.
One particular meme that persists to this day is Jeb Bush winning a landslide meme, where an image of Jeb Bush celebrating a complete victory in various countries who were having elections. Bernie Sanders was the source of the infamous Facebook group Bernie Sanders Dank Meme Stash, where pro-Bernie people would go to post pro-Bernie memes, much to the envy of Clinton. As of 2018, the group is still going strong with 417,000 members, and spawned many knockoff groups like Julius Caesar's Dank Meme Storage Silo, and Kim Jong-un's Dank Meme Storage Facility, and many more. Hillary's memes revolved around her rivalry with Sanders and her incompetence. Bernie versus Hillary memes showed Hillary as an out-of-touch baby boomer, whereas Sanders was down with the kids, despite being nearly 80. This format would later be revived in the 2017 UK election with Corbyn versus May. Other Hillary memes included Pokemon Go to the polls, and her supposed lizard people connections. Also her signature trite, meaningless soundbite that doesn't actually mean anything.
America is great because America is good.
What? What are you talking about?
Biggest of all was the meme culture around Trump. Trump is a living meme. He is a walking bag of comedy. You may remember Pepe the Frog, the funny little weed frog created by Matt Fury in 2005. After a brief death in meme relevance, he was revived by 4chan as the figurehead of the Trump campaign. This led to the Anti-Defamation League branding Pepe as a symbol of racial hatred, on par with the swastika and the Confederate flag. What made it worse was that the Italian disco funk group known as Pepe released a song in the 80s called Shadilay, promptly adopted as the anthem of Trump fans. Further research by the 4chan Cultural Department showed that the ancient Egyptian deity known as Kek was often symbolized as a frog. Statues of the deity showed in hieroglyphics what looked like a person viewing a computer, and the shape of opinion polls between Trump and Hillary. And thus, meme magic was born. If a poster on 4chan had a post number ending in the same digits, their statement became extra true. In one case, a poster hit the jackpot when his simple statement, "Trump will win," ended in the post number 777-777-77. Even spookier is that Trump was, on the day of his inauguration, 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old. Eventually 4chan would go deeper and deeper into the conspiracy, beginning to believe that there was a Democrat-operated child sex ring in the basement of a pizza restaurant in Washington, D.C., that doesn't even have a basement. And who could forget D's nuts? After an unfunny Vine meme kicked off, a 15-year-old from Iowa registered that Mr. D's nuts was running for president. In August 2016, D's nuts was polling at 3%, which is slightly higher than Green Party candidate Jill Stein and slightly lower than Harambe the gorilla, who was polling at 5%. Okay, here's the challenge. Take a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle. On one side, write a list of controversial things said by Donald Trump. On the other side, write the controversies sparked by Hillary Clinton. I did it myself and I got for Donald Trump: small loan of $1 million, Obama's birth certificate, they're bringing rapists, bomb the shit out of them, the P-tape dossier, refusal to release his tax returns, I could shoot somebody and not lose any votes, 7-Eleven, disabled reporter, complete ban on Muslims entering the United States, and lastly, grab 'em by the pussy. And for Hillary, I don't know, Pokemon Go to the polls? The thing is, Trump fans went on for months and months and months about Hillary's email scandal because it was the one controversy that discredited her. But for Trump, he was producing controversy on the daily. Every week a new remark took the media by storm, but then you'd eventually forget about it. Even I had trouble naming them all. One controversy destroys a campaign. Too many controversies just become a statistics. Joseph Stalin. In the Hillary camp, there were speculations that Clinton was unfit to hold office. She had a miniature Caesar during a press interview and had a funny turn during the announcement of her candidacy. She also fainted at a 9/11 memorial service. Clinton was the second most unpopular candidate in US history, second only to Trump. Over 1,000 people submitted themselves as a presidential candidate for the 2016 election, yet somehow, America ended up with these two. But were there any other options? The third largest party in the United States is the Libertarian Party, who stand on a platform of social freedom and economic liberalism. Running in 2016 was Gary Johnson, former governor of New Mexico and official dank meme lord.
We have a 1 in 5, a higher chance of having a heart attack within the first hour after you smoke marijuana. There are legitimate side effects of this drug. The THC, when in the 60s...
Gary was polling pretty high, the highest it had ever been, reaching as high as 13% in his home state of New Mexico. His pro-peace, pro-gay, pro-choice program pleased the liberals, while his anti-tax, anti-gun control, anti-government attitude resonated with conservatives. His plan was to poll at 15%, which would allow him to participate in the presidential debates to gain support in the same way Ross Perot did in the 1990s. Unfortunately, his campaign died off after a series of media blunders, including the infamous "What is Aleppo" gag, where Johnson could not recall the city in Syria where a crucial battle was being fought in the Syrian civil war. Nonetheless, Johnson tripled the 2012 Libertarian vote, earning 4.4 million votes. The Green Party elected Dr. Jill Stein as their candidate, who ran on a platform of market socialism and electoral reform. She proposed decimating the military budget, shifting 100% to renewable energy by 2030, and free healthcare. Stein is a favourite among left-wingers who are disillusioned with the neoliberal Democratic Party, but they were unable to garner as much support as Johnson, especially since Stein believed Wi-Fi had an effect on your health. Lastly, Evan McMullin, a moderate Republican with libertarian sympathies, attempted an independent bid at president. A latecomer to the race, he was quickly able to obtain ballot access in numerous states, enough to win the Electoral College. When it came to polling day, McMullin came second place in several counties in Utah, winning 21% of the Utah vote. After the election, Jill Stein and Gary Johnson joined forces to sue the debate commission for not allowing them into the debates. As of 2017, the lawsuit has been unsuccessful. The debates were next, 2 between Hillary and Donald and 1 between their vice president nominees Tim Kaine and Mike Pence. They were mostly uneventful, akin to watching 2 old people argue over the remote for a couple of hours. However, this guy, a nuclear power plant technician from Illinois, was the centre of yet another meme. He simply asked a question about the candidate's energy policies, but his red sweater and funny name led to an ironic fanbase of many, many people. Nobody knows who he ended up voting for, and then his son got suspended from school for being a potential school shooter. Day after day, week after week, the campaigns continued. People were beginning to wonder when it would all end, whether polling day would even arrive. And then polling day arrived. 2 years of campaigning had led to this day. Opinion polls were at 45% each. It was anyone's game. The goal was simple: win 270 electoral votes and you've won the presidency. Polling opened early in some places. A small town in Florida cast their votes at 5 AM. 10 people voted, 4 for Hillary, 5 for Donald, and 1 for Johnson. Clinton and Trump cast their votes for themselves in their home state of New York, and Obama visited Chicago to vote for Hillary. Across the nation, people were encouraged to just get out and vote. Even Randall Munroe of XKCD Comics ran a special issue to encourage Hillary voters. Grey Day Underray made a video explaining the candidates' positions, albeit he only released it an hour before the last polls closed in California. On 4chan, meme magic was being distributed at an alarming rate, hoping for a Trump win. Every news channel at every minute of every day for the entire day was about the election, except the Weather Channel, which made it clear that it would be the only channel not covering the election at all. So for the entire day, you had to pick between watching footage of Trump or reruns of Storm Chasers. Polls closed and counting began. At 6 PM, Indiana, Kentucky and West Virginia had gone red, giving Trump 19 electoral votes. By 7:30 PM, New Hampshire went blue, giving Hillary a mere 3. By 8:30, most of New England had gone to Hillary, but an hour later, Donald had smashed the central USA. Hillary made some close gains after 11 PM after winning the populous West Coast, trailing Trump by only 5 electoral votes. At this point, faithless electors began to spring up. 1 in Maine voted for Trump despite the state voting for Hillary. In Washington state, 3 electors voted for retired General Colin Powell, who wasn't even running, and 1 voted for Native American activist Faith Spotted Eagle. 1 elector in Hawaii voted for Bernie Sanders, and 1 in Texas voted for Kasich. Ironically, 1 elector in Texas also voted for Ron Paul. Paul had ran for president in 2008 and 2012, winning no electoral votes. But in 2016, the 1 year he didn't run for president, he actually won an electoral vote. At 3 AM Eastern Time, Wisconsin declared they had voted Republican. Donald Trump had then won 270 electoral votes and thus the presidency. Despite all that, all the division and radicalization of the American people, all the arguments and ruined family dinners, after all that, only 55% of Americans turned out to vote, 1% more than 2012. Donald Trump, of course, was ecstatic, so much so that he had to have his phone confiscated by his staff to stop him blowing up Twitter. It is worth noting that Trump did not win the most votes. No candidate won a majority of votes, in fact. But in the United States, only the electoral votes count. There were protests, of course, #NotMyPresident and such, and even a fringe movement to literally redo the election.
No! No!
Hillary eventually went on to write a book about what happened. And then it came out that Trump potentially colluded with the Russians and even Facebook had to help him win. The verdict of that is currently unknown. Trump was inaugurated on the 21st of January 2017 and promptly began his policies. Some news outlets predicted there was a 99% chance Hillary would win. Nobody thought Trump could do it, but he did, and he sent a message to the rest of the world that populism was back. I believe this created a shockwave across the Western world that both invigorated populism and warned against it. Emmanuel Macron beat the Trump-esque candidate Marine Le Pen in France, and progressive Jeremy Corbyn unseated Theresa May's majority in the UK. Meanwhile in Germany, the far-right AfD party made huge gains, and the Dutch anti-Islamic candidate Geert Wilders became the official opposition leader. Only time will tell if this populism remains or if it will pass as the liberal left wake up and begin to push it back. "2016 was unironically the best year of my life so far, despite it being called one of the worst in recent history, and following the election certainly contributed to my enjoyment. I could laugh at Trump and Hillary and Johnson and the lot. I could laugh at Americans because I knew none of it had any effect until polling day. Today, whenever Trump does anything stupid, it's not as funny because he actually has power. This buffoon of a man is currently the leader of the free world. I doubt we will ever see an electoral process so bizarre for a long time. But hey, the 2018 midterms are coming up, and that's when people start initiating presidential bids, so the whole process is going to start up again pretty soon. So, see you next time.